I wonder if like the sense of belonging that we started talking about, this conversation talking about, and maybe like how your definition of belonging has like changed over time, and maybe like does that have like what connection does that have to your being Asian American?
Growing up, I think I wanted to fit in a lot, and so I was like very concerned with what other people thought of me, or and not very concerned with being Asian. If anything, I probably like pushed it away, and that continued, you know, for a long time, probably like into my 30s, when I finally sort of like saw a lot of strength from it, and saw that like my parents had like made a lot of hard choices as well. So I guess it's like, yeah, finding belonging in an unfamiliar place, or like in the process of like making it familiar and maybe never being completely like part of it. This may not be related, but I also had some resistance even to like having this conversation. I thought about like calling it off and like saying like, well, I don't feel comfortable talking about it because it involves like interior difficult feelings that I feel like would reflect badly on my family or Asian culture in general. Like it's like, maybe this is like a stereotype. And then I realized like that also is like, I think being part of Asian American is like bearing difficulty and not necessarily, you know, calling it out or making a big deal of it. So that's knowing how much to say, how much to reach out for help, but also knowing that, you know, people care about each other, but they may not be like overly emotionally expressive, like that's in a Western way about it. What about you? How do you relate to being Asian American? I think it's actually taken me some time to even call myself Asian American. Growing up in school, yeah, it's like I'd always like refer to my friends and myself as like Chinese. Being Asian American to me is about inhabiting that in-between space, and that it's about like looking at that in-betweenness as not like, you know, not something that's on the path to something else, but more of like expanding that so that it's like a place, its own place that you can inhabit. And I think like, you know, we're living in Detroit, we're living in the city where that's like dominated by cars, right? It's like there's a boulevard out the window that is like 4 car lanes wide, and it's like a pedestrian, you know, it's like for people, there's all this like circulation that like takes us from one place to another. I think like that's been my experience of like Asian Americanness almost, is like that I feel like I'm always heading somewhere else, and I'm always like, you know, in motion towards something. And I think like really owning that label is more about, you know, think about how do I like, I don't know, how do I transform this road into like its own place that is like meant for, you know, for human beings to inhabit, right? Oh, that's good. I like it. Like you're in a thoroughfare, which is, and if you stop, that doesn't feel safe or comfortable.
Yeah. Like how do we turn the old freeway into a park, right? That's sort of like, kind of like, you know, the question that I ask.
Watch One Detroit, Thursday at 7:30 p.m.